Ryan, have you ever thought about being an architect?
Have you ever thought about being a truck driver?
Have you ever thought about being a salesperson?
What about something in the medical field?
Realtor? Listen to Career Paths every Thursday
Wherever you listen to podcasts,
and on YouTube. You might learn something.
you might not.
It's your life. Make it happen.
Memories fading, we all forget those not so shiny things you do.
Career Paths.
Okay. Yeah, they're. Oh, okay. It's recording.
We're-
So, do you want me to tell you the worst parts?
yeah, so we left off with the best and the worst part.
Okay.
So now that we're back,
So
let's get to the worst part.
Yeah, I think the worst part is that kind of exemplifies that basically everything in life is either a blessing or can be both a blessing and a curse. So, in nursing, because you can always find a job, literally, it's very hard to get on disability. It's almost impossible to collect unemployment. And some of the jobs are pretty rugged and pretty hard,
Yeah.
and just physically hard. And so that's the bad part. It's like it's physically wearing. And what I do now, working as a nurse practitioner, working in psychiatry where I am now. Again, I'm not in that situation where if a patient is out of control, I'm not part of the crew that runs in and grabs an arm or a leg and tries to restrain them and get them calmed down. I'd say, no, we're going to give them 2 milligrams of this and 3 milligrams of that. And no, we're going to make it injectable. I don't think they'll swallow it for you.
You don't get Taekwondo.
Yeah, I don't have to use it. And so that's probably part of what I look at as being the worst. And I think the other parts that are hard for people is that you are interacting with people a lot of times at very, very tragic episodes in their lives. And yeah, I can honestly say that after working as an RN for many years in critical care, and again, in a hospice unit I did that for about a year and a half. There's probably very few people who have been around more dead bodies
Yeah.
or been with people who were dying, other than combat soldiers, and homicide detectives, the undertakers, and
Yeah.
just a limited bunch of people. And there's times when it's like before you realize it, there's a part of yourself that toughens up to that. You don't want to let yourself become so callous to it that that you can't recognize the emotion, but you also have to, you're working on learning how to stuff or at least confront and deal with your own feelings about it, because you can't help people if you're crying with them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that part, I think, is one of the harder parts. And the other part that just plain gross is some of the physical aspects. You can be exposed to bodily fluids and excrement, bad smells.
That's why we had
And
to drop the set.
yeah.
We didn't want
it's
to
not
bad smells.
not totally different from farming.
Yeah. It's very true.
I mean, I know there are other professions and job areas where that being exposed to
You talking bad about me, Ann. How dare you? Go ahead.
where you get exposed to bad smells, or you actually witness and sometimes touch things that are kind of gross. It's like,
Ryan's kind of gross. I'm touching him. Anyway.
All right. So what was the process like going from the schooling into actual work?
You remember back then?
Yeah, for me, it was pretty good. I was probably very fortunate. When I graduated from the nursing school, and in the nursing school, because it was one of the few remaining diploma programs, it was very hands-on and oriented toward getting clinical time. And so that we were, I'd say for new grads, we were probably definitely more comfortable than some of the BSN new grads, because we did have more clinical time. Now that aspect is changing now, because what most of the colleges are doing is they're having their nursing students take a CNA course, certified nursing assistant course. And that's where they learn about how do you do a bed bath? How do you empty that bedpan so you don't get splattered? And other semi-humorous things like that. But, and so, you know, people are struggling to pay tuition and college and go to school. Well, okay, wait a minute, you're a certified nursing assistant. And now, so they also can get some jobs as nursing assistants, get a little bit of hands-on experience in dealing with sick people and families of sick people and
Leave me-
doctors and stuff like that.
Leave me out of this, Anne. How dare you?
So then what's a typical day like for you, the task, your hours, etc.? And
Now, okay, back when I was working in critical care, when I was on day shift, it would start 6:30, 6:40. We were allowed to, I'd be leaving my house probably around 6:30. And we could only clock in like so many minutes ahead of time. So, you know, it was like we'd be little lines around the time clocks, because, you know, oh, I got here too early now and I can't clock in yet. So we might clock in like at 6:50. That was about the earliest we could get clocked in. And then the first thing you do is you listen to a report. So somebody from the night shift is going to tell the people coming on what happened overnight, or what happened yesterday. Did they do tests, whatever? Did the person sleep well? Did they have a lot of pain? And they would go through, and basically they would do a report on everybody, every patient on the
How many clients did you have to, were there at that time, roughly 10, 20, 30, 40?
It would vary from the units. Some of the units would have like maybe 30 patients on them. You might have, if you were working on a floor,
Right.
you might have 5 patients.
Oh, okay.
Some places, and in some places, you would have more.
Okay.
You could end up with more. And then with that, you also would have nursing assistants who would also help with some of the hands-on care.
Okay.
Because those patients, depending upon the unit or that particular floor and the hospital that they were at, I mean, they could be able to feed themselves, able to get up, go to the bathroom, able to take a shower.
Right.
Or be so debilitated that they can't even turn themselves over in bed. And so, you know, the ideal of making out an assignment would be to try to say, okay, you wouldn't want to give somebody all 5 of their patients or all 6 of their patients
Right.
who were total care, unable to do anything at all for themselves,
Split it.
because it wouldn't work out well for the patient.
Yeah.
And so then the more acute, the sicker the people are, the fewer patients per nurse. That ratio keeps dropping.
Right.
And there's CT unit at St. Joe, cardiothoracic unit. Their ratio for a fresh, and it's probably still the same, but this was several years back. Their ratio for what they call a fresh heart, fresh surgery that had been done like that day, it would be 1-on-1 and sometimes 2-on-1.
Oh, wow.
And then the next day, it might be 1-on-2,
Right.
because they usually improve pretty quickly. And so usually, like I said, it would vary from area to area, but you could end up basically helping them do everything, help them into the bathroom.
Yep.
If they can't reach their rear end, guess what? Somebody's got to do it for them.
Yeah.
Help with whatever task they can't do for themselves. And that was a lot of what we were learning. It's a lot of, yes, you go and you give them their medicine, but you may, after you've helped them get their hygiene for the day, help them get cleaned up from sleeping and awake, put fresh pajamas on or fresh little gown.
Right.
And then, then there's making sure they get to their activities that they need to do. They might need to get to physical therapy. They might, if they're at a certain point after surgery, they need to be moving, because if they don't, they're not going to heal right, and they'll stay more debilitated.
Yep.
So, the nurses, you would go in, you might have to have somebody go with you, because the person could still be so weak. So you get them up, stand them up, and start walking.
We're watching your cat, Ann.
Where is she? Oh, yes.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
so what doing now though? Because you've got
So now,
what do you
now it's
time frame
what I-
nowadays? Because
yeah, now it's very different for me, because I'm dealing with, mental health, mental illness.
right. Well,
So
long history of that within our family. So anyway, that being said, you're welcome. I just want to clarify, anybody that knows me already.
yes, we sort of grew up understanding how to deal with these
why
kind
I'm
of
part
things.
the family. That's why Ryan's part of the family these days. Get away. Anyway, yes.
Yep. And so with with mental health, it's like, it's not like you want to tell people you have to think about things in this way or that way. You want them to have their own thoughts, their own ideas,
Yes.
but it's more helping them with behaviors and learning that, okay, yeah, you can think your boss is dumb, but you might not be the best idea to go in and tell him or her.
How did I tell you that?
I tell my boss he's dumb all the time.
Oh, that's right. You're self-employed. Never mind.
Yes, and so or with you might want to help them out with, no, you see, the reason you got put in restraints was you picked up the table and threw it.
That's not a good thing.
And yeah, when you do that,
Good.
so you try to, you're always working with wherever the patient's at, trying to help them recognize that, okay,
Possibly in some ways.
right, could we, there's other options besides throwing the table or throwing your food at people.
I told you.
And yeah, so sometimes sometimes it is sometimes it is a lot like kindergarten teaching.
So then what's your hours like? I mean,
Well, right now,
Are
I
they-
mean, it varies widely from hospital to hospital, but typically, some places like to staff with 8-hour shifts, and so there'll be 3 shifts technically. Usually it's like a 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7. And then there are some places that will also have 12-hour shifts.
Mm.
And so those can be widely varied.
Right.
And usually, at least around this part of the country, it was 7A to 7P.
Mhm.
So it was like kind of like for the morning people, it was everybody was starting at the same time. But for the people who work nights, if they were doing the 12-hour night, they'd be coming in to start work at 7 instead of 11. But then they'd work fewer days.
Okay. Do you
Or fewer nights.
stuff doing your position right now? You do a lot of paperwork or computer work?
Do a lot of computer stuff, lots of computer stuff. And the hours are day shift. Psychiatry is very different. It's not like on the television where, the person is having a crisis at night, and so they call their therapist 9 o'clock at night and they talk through it. No, we don't do that.
No.
No. Now, if people are in an inpatient situation, then, there would be nurses there and techs there that, yeah, they're having a crisis. They're crying. They're out of control emotionally. There's people there that would try to help them by talking about it. And if they couldn't help them with that, they're going to make sure they stay safe, don't hurt themselves or other people. But right now, and for the most part in psychiatry, we don't have a lot of nighttime calls like that.
Really? That's not a bad thing, though.
But yeah, it's been has been interesting, and it just depends on different practices.
Sure.
Right now, the founding partner, Dr. Hamid, he takes all the night calls. Of course, most of the nighttime calls are his patients, but because he works with Suboxone, he works with addiction medicine as well.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so that's a little more physical illness type stuff. And he also does, he keeps asking me, do I want to do that too? And I keep saying, no, I think I'm okay.
So has the whole COVID thing affected your department?
And you? That way?
It's changed a lot for us. We do a lot of telemedicine, a lot of video chats. Right now, it's getting to where I will actually have maybe 4 patients per day that actually are coming into the office, which was surprising because the patients are saying, no, I prefer to come in and talk to you in person.
Yep.
And so we are able to start. We've been doing that for several months now. And like I said, we do a Monday through Friday. I had for a while, I was going out on Friday because our practice closes early on Fridays. So it would close at 2. And then I would book down the road to long-term care situation, community alternatives. And so instead of having like a state hospital with the chronic mentally ill or severely and persistently mentally ill, and we always say that SMI, right? We leave the P out of it. It doesn't make sense. It should be SPMI, right? Severely and persistently mentally ill. But no, when we make the acronym, it's the SMI group. It's like, okay. But at any rate, so here locally, and I'm sure it's a national trend, that there's these organizations and they work with insurances so that they can, pay the bills, but they'll try to see what kind of income the patients have from their disability or Social Security. And if they can possibly do it, they'll set them up in an apartment.
Oh, wow.
With an aide, at least one, depending on how many are in that building, in that house, apartment, whatever. And there'll be 24/7 staff.
Oh.
And so the place that I would go and work with, they had a central, they called it their activity center. And it basically was like a big, it was a building that had like a big gymnasium. And there was a couple of smaller rooms all around the perimeter. And so I would go out there on Friday afternoons and see who those patients that needed their psych meds managed and work with those folks out there. And it actually was, I think, a better way to do that for them. And these people, I think around here, we call it community alternatives. And so they're living, yes, they're still closely supervised, but there's a TV, and then they're more of a home-like atmosphere and environment. And the aides would take them shopping for clothes when they needed them. In their activity area, they had a lot of interesting stuff that they could do. They had pottery and that kind of stuff.
In your personal experience, would you say that was a better situation for most people in this situation to live
Yeah.
a normal life, still supervised, still helped out, still had guidance?
Yeah.
That was
I think it was. I mean, those
Oh.
folks, when I was go out to visit them, they'd go, "Oh, hey, Miss Ann, hey, Miss Ann," and they'd come and tell me about what they got to do. It's like, ice capades are coming to town.
Oh,
I'm going to get to go,
nice. Okay, yeah. Just like trying.
and those kind of things. And a couple of the younger patients where they would take them to the Y,
Oh.
and it would be, they wouldn't be just turned loose at the YMCA.
right.
They'd stay with them, and then they'd say, "Okay, you want to do some weights? Here we go. You want to swim?"
Right.
If it was a female, they'd have a female attendant go with her
Sure.
and make sure she, put the clothes in the locker, put the bathing suit on,
The right thing.
and then, out to the pool. So that I thought was definitely a much better situation. I mean, the VA was probably one of the better long-term care for the mentally ill, because they did have they had a little bowling alley for them. They had they had a swimming pool for a while, and then it was having problems. They ran into, because it was, well, I mean,
Yep.
that particular VA was built somewhere between World War I and World War II.
Couple years old.
So sometimes the plumbing and the electrical wiring, they'd have to try to upgrade it to deal with the modern appliances and modern demands. But still, it was very institutionalized, as far as, the beds were all the same bed and stuff like that.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think the way these community alternative organizations have been able to work around here, at least in Kentucky, has really been good. It's kind of, some places they call them group homes, but the difference between just a group home and what I was seeing at the community alternative place was the level of staff contact.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there was,
Group
yeah,
home didn't have as much supervision. Geez Louise, learn how to
Yeah.
talk.
Brian, but
yeah, and I mean, the aides were, for a lot of those patients, the aides were like their family,
Right.
their aides or techs. And so it was definitely a lot better for them. And the other thing that always amazed me, and I guess that's one of the downsides there, was how many of those people who were in the SMI population had been abused.
Yeah.
Physically, sexually, just plain exploited,
There's a lot of nasty stuff out there.
yeah. And it's like, oh my goodness, this was going on way back.
Yeah. Didn't have
We humans have not been the nicest to each other over the years.
Let's not
And
go there.
it's,
Yeah.
We'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there right now. Next
So-
question.
what would you say the biggest misconception that the public has about
What you do.
nurses, and then your position now
Yeah.
too?
I think the biggest situation and the biggest misconception they have is that nurses are kind of like waitresses,
Mm,
and
want this?
It's-
Can you go get
it's
it?
not. It's like, no, the nurse is coming in and telling you, listen, we need to do your bath. And part of the reason we need to do that is because you need to be moving your arms. You need to be moving your legs, bending your knees and stuff like that. And this is what we have to get done. And it's people seem to think that it's an option, where with what I do now, where that comes in is there's a lot of patients that think it's like, no, I want this drug. It's like,
It doesn't-
well, I'm sorry, but that's contraindicated for you.
Yeah.
But, and so that is one of the misconceptions. They also seem to think that it's hilarious at times, because as a nurse practitioner, at least in psychiatry, you're fairly independent.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, but you're supposed to be smart enough by then, aren't you, to know this stuff? How to deal with some of
Yeah.
this stuff?
yeah, you pick it up, you learn it as you go.
Hopefully.
I mean, you talk about it in class, they give you these principles and you
Right.
read these thick books.
You can read?
Um,
How dare you?
yeah, it helps a lot.
My aunt, she's showing off again.
She's like that. Runs in the
But
van.
so you do the reading, all that kind of stuff. But when you're working with, like I said, with the patients, there's times when they've heard from somebody else that this particular medicine is good and they should have it. Or you give them a medicine like that's maybe a controlled drug that they're only supposed to take when they are actually having a panic attack. But you find out that no, they're taking it twice a day anyways, because they have it.
Huh.
Basically, I mean, they'll always say, "Oh, I was so anxious." It's like, but how long? You've
Right.
been taking this for before you started here, and I think you might have a dependency problem. Oh no, I really need that,
Uh-huh.
and it's hard to
Independent.
get to help people come to understand that
Right.
that those some of the drugs, and some of the drugs, it's you have to really try to educate people and tell them why this is controlled and why we don't want you to take it any more than you absolutely need to.
Sure.
Because like there's one of them that the anxiety group, they benzodiazepines, and they've been linked to dementia.
Well, that's a
Hmm.
plus.
Oh,
And so,
You don't remember.
I don't
that you took
remember
it.
taking it.
but it's not necessarily a good thing, because the statistics were that people who were taking those drugs on a regular basis were developing dementia 5 to 10 years younger than people who were not, and 50% more often.
Wow.
That's kind of scary.
Yep.
And so, but yeah, even though I tell them that,
They didn't care.
there's people that are just like, oh, I have to have that
Yeah.
that drug. Yeah, I have to have that. Why are you? And I'll ask them very directly, are you really having a panic attack? You mean you're soaked in sweat, you can't breathe, your vision's getting a little foggy, thoughts are racing too fast. You go through all those things that people experience with a panic attack, and they'll say, oh, well, but I was going there. I
So,
was really anxious.
so
So
income
it's like,
and benefits and stuff. As a nurse,
Everything you've done.
you've had, I mean, there was good
Yeah.
income. I've heard that nurses make
Decent money.
decent money.
we do. And now,
Like she has
if I were younger, I would probably definitely be very lucky and very happy, because I think there's people now that are RNs, 2-year and 4-year grads with a little bit of experience, and they're making $50 an hour,
Not bad.
Yeah.
and that's not bad.
And you get full benefits and stuff.
Yeah, but now when you transition to a practitioner role, you don't lose money. You may not make a whole lot more depending upon what area you go to. I mean, in psychiatry, we don't do a whole lot of, poking people with needles and stuff like that. So there's basically, we can do therapy with a visit, but we don't have all the extra add-ons to our visits that, like, I don't know, dermatology might have, where they, oh, well, we excised this, we burned that, we did something to this. And so each one of those little procedures has a separate coding and an extra billing amount added to just the cost of the visit. And, but I can't complain. I mean, I think I'm making very good money, and I'm not working excessively hard. I mean, I'm working, some days are busier than others,
Sure.
but
You enjoy what you do too.
yes,
It
I
makes-
do.
Makes a hell of a lot of difference.
I do. I think it helps. Yeah, I think if you're a true introvert, you may not really want to work in
Yeah, that's
nursing.
you. That runs in our family too.
Where?
Yeah, we have a lot of introverts in our family. Yeah,
Jesus.
but
Go ahead.
so I think that's like I said, and the aspect too is that just like for people that go into firefighting, you're interacting with people during times when they're having difficulty.
Right.
And they're not at their best.
Yeah.
And
But with your experience and everything you've done, you're aware of this, kind of how to deal with it. Sometimes you have to deal with the individual because they're going to be. But yeah, you have to have some experience with this, correct?
yeah, you do. And like I said, we also have support groups for ourselves, and that's also helpful. And
That's cheating.
it is kind of, it is kind of. But I think on the whole, I'll probably work for about another maybe 3 more years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I found the last time I had to do my recertification with the American Nurses Credentialing Corporation,
Whatever. that-
ANCC. Of course, I'll grant, COVID was really rocking around then. And so, but what normally would take like a 1-week turnaround, because you do a lot of it online, you put the
Right.
information in, actually took 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of scary.
Oh.
And fortunately though, I mean, poor little Kentucky, you can update your license. You pay your renewal fee every year. They ask you, have you done in-services and stuff like that? What kind of continuing eds have you done and all that good stuff? And you just fill it in online and
Wasn't that difficult?
wait an hour, especially if you have electronic banking.
That's good.
If you had to do it by mail and, wait for them to cash the check and all that stuff.
Oh, no, we're more than aware of what you're saying. Trust me, in more ways than one.
Yep.
We're just,
So it's like you have your updated licensure, and they don't mail them anymore because surprisingly, people would actually try to steal or forge nursing licenses
well, once again, nothing surprises me.
as the paychecks got bigger. People try to shortcut it and just get a license and
Rock and roll, make money.
yeah, rock and roll.
How many jobs or careers have you had over the years, Dan? Besides really one, you just nursing, but different positions
Yeah.
within nursing.
That's it.
Good question.
It's been nursing since I was
Yes,
20 years old.
actually,
I mean,
yeah.
that's
Before
I
then,
graduated before I could legally vote.
imagine that. Okay, we got a couple more questions. We're going to wrap this up.
Got one more, really.
Yeah, we got one more question. So you want to ask this one?
Sure. So, as a kid,
As a
what
kid.
did you want to be?
A nurse.
Was that always from day one? As long as
Well, besides a cowgirl.
Well, see, there you go. That's who we have. See, we have
Which-
cowboy, we have astronaut, we
Yeah.
have policeman.
which
Yep.
nursing, cowgirl, they
Kind of the same
they
thing at
kind of get
times.
messy at times in the same ways.
I was very disappointed that we didn't have Indians. My cousins and I had 2 female cousins that were a little bit, just maybe a year or 2 younger than I was, and when our mothers would be visiting, across the street from my grandfather's house was this wooded area, this little wooded patch, and we would go over into the woods and we would play that we were Indian princesses.
Nice.
go around and play and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff that kids do.
Yep.
And yeah, so yeah,
You know that being on the West Coast, we had relatives, mutual relatives, you know, who I think you know who we speak of, Melissa and Hope, and they
Yeah.
visited. And the kids, I was about 10 years old, and they were wondering where the teepees were out here because they were finally out for the family being
Yeah.
from the East Coast, and we're going, what? There's no teepees out here. Anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
There you go. And I've learned so much about you, Ryan.
Yeah.
This is my aunt. Have you met my aunt, Ryan? That was
Briefly.
that was great. I knew, once again, it's like having my brother Jim on as a guest. He was our first ever. Had him back on recently. I knew you'd be very informational, and yeah. Thank you very much. We're already done. How easy was that?
All right.
Thank
Very
you,
easy.
Martine. Thanks
Good.
for listening to Career Paths by InfoNet. Your host, I guess today, you're the host today.
Yeah.
On this show, host
the
Ryan
host.
King. I'll be the extra host. I don't know.
Co-host.
I'm not your
Yeah.
co-host. How dare you? Till next time, it's your life, make it happen. Annie, thank you very much. We'll get you back probably soon, probably within the year. Just I want to get an update on you.
All right.
Because,
Yeah. Well, now, in addition to my patients, I've been precepting student and nurse practitioners.
Oh geez, watch out. Can you send them should I talk to these people and inform them what they have to deal with?
Well, it's kind of funny because when I was going to school, when we get a preceptor and stuff, it was just something that we were told that when you become a registered nurse, you have the option to precept a student. Do it. It's your duty.
Right.
You have to
Help somebody out.
shepherd the younger people into the profession. That's part of, just part of what you're supposed to do. So I've precepted students every place I've worked.
Yeah.
And last winter, I got asked to precept a student, somebody from the University of Kentucky. They're a clinical coordinator for the psych and portion of their doctoral nursing program, because now that's what it is. It's the doctor of nursing practice. And which really upset the medical docs a lot when they were first starting. They were, I remember overhearing some conversations about it. Well, what do we call them then? Doctor, nurse? I said, no, you probably just call them by their first name anyways. My patients either call me Miss Ann or Dr. Ann, and I gave up. I would say, well, I'm not a doctor, I'm a nurse. And they'd go, oh yeah, but you're just like the doctor. So at any rate,
You need to
it's,
share this, you're gonna have to share this with those people now, so they get to know you.
yeah,
Instead of
and
me-
that's kind of, yeah, I think that's one of the interesting parts about it, because really sharing yourself with your patients is part of that recovery for them and for us.
the
you know,
trust
it's like-
factor too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
There you go. Anything else, Ryan?
Nope.
Annie, thank you very much. We'll
You
talk.
are absolutely welcome.
Look at that, time flew. A couple shows later.
No.
Not like you haven't done this. I knew this was going to end up being a two-parter just because of everything you've done, and me knowing.
Well, the only nursing areas or healthcare areas I haven't worked in were obstetrics, labor and delivery,
Yeah, yeah.
and pediatrics.
Damn kids. Fucking kids.
At both.
And both,
Phases.
yeah, screw that. Yeah.
You know,
You before.
one thing about pediatrics, though, they're usually small and you can pick them up and move them easier.
Yeah, that's true.
But now I don't have to do that. You
You
it's
call
like-
call the muscle in.
actually, I can. We have one of our office staff is probably, he's really tall and he's really big, and he literally works out. and it is kind of funny because when I first started there, Dr. Hamid is an older gentleman. He's tall and thin. And then there's me. And the people who were working at the desk then were two females. And again, one was just a little taller than I am. The other one was, I think she was even shorter than I am. So, we weren't necessarily physically intimidating.
Yeah.
And then we hired this young gentleman, and it's made a big difference. I mean, personality wise, this young man is a pussycat.
Yeah, but he
He's-
knows
he's-
there's business, then there's personal.
I mean, he's just not going to, he's not an aggressive, combative person, but he doesn't have to be.
Yeah,
He just-
just by his look.
He just, if some patient is starting to get kind of loud, and he'll just come over and just look, and the patient sees him looking, and they're like,
That's all I need. Thank you.
well, I'm calming down.
What's his name?
Donard,
Well, you have to show him. Well, you tell him you did a show and you're
I
talking.
will,
All righty.
I will.
Annie, thank you very much. Everybody else, thanks for watching, listening to Career Paths by Infonet. Thanks, Ryan, for hosting the second part of with my aunt,
what I
Annie
do.
Banani. I don't know where the hell that came from. I was saying that earlier to Ryan, Annie Banani. So what? the-
Your dad,
My dad.
that was from your dad.
Yeah, so thanks, Dad. We'll talk soon. We're out of here. We're history. Thanks,
All
Annie.
right. Love you guys. Take care.
Ashes to ashes.
Okay.
Take 24. La 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 la.
Career Path.